Hello, everyone. This is your daily dose of TikTok, where we look at red flags and people we date, part 2.
What is a red flag that you should not have ignored about someone you were dating?
In 2010, I was going to university and I met this guy who worked there. We decided that we were going to go on a date one day, and he came to my house to come pick me up. He told me that he had been to my house before. That was red flag number one that I didn't pay attention to. He wound up telling me that he actually dated one of my sister's friends, which I had no idea. We had already been talking for a couple months, so I was just like, well, we might as well go ahead. So the day he comes to pick me up on our first date, my mom was like, let him come in the house. When he comes in the house, my mom looks at him like he's weird. As he sits down, she's talking to him, and she was like, were you just drinking? He looked at my mom, and he kind of caught an attitude. Red flag number 2. She starts schooling him about drinking alcohol because she's a nurse, and he kind of waves her off. She starts talking about Bible verses. He starts talking about Bible verses in reverse. I'm looking at the conversation like, what is going on here? So we leave and we go on our date. As time goes on, I realize that he's very pale looking, and I never understood why. One day we go out to a bowling alley, and I see one of my friends. He says, oh, you were drunk David. I was like, what? Red flag number 3. When we go out on another date, he decides that he wants to keep ordering all this alcohol. And then after the date, he decides that he wants to go to a liquor store. He drank the whole bottle by the end of the night. I then realized that he was alcoholic. That should have been it for me right then and there, right? Of course not. I continued to date this man for about 3 years. I now realize that he was a narcissist. He was a liar. He was pathetic. One day we go back to the bowling alley, and one of his friends says to me, hey, David is wired. You know, he's really been drinking a lot. Make sure you're driving to take him home. I said, okay, I got it. As we're driving home, he starts looking at me all crazy. Mind you, he's in the back seat of the car because he broke my passenger side door. So he's looking at me all crazy like, oh, you want to leave me? But I'm telling you, you can go ahead, whatever. I pulled over and we just started arguing. He had this canteen, and I took the canteen and I started yelling at him saying like, I bet you it's a bunch of alcohol in here. Like, this is getting ridiculous. You really need to get help. I took that canteen and threw it out the window. Don't you know he told me to get out the car and go find his canteen? I told him to get out the car and walk his ass home. Of course, he never walked home. He stayed in the car. So while I'm driving with my foot on the gas, he decides he wants to pull me from the front of the car to the back of the car. Like for a part 2.
Unfortunately, guys, there was no part 2, but we should definitely take those red flags into account. How about we look at the next one?
Let's begin. For me, it wasn't that he was a 30-year-old man pursuing me, a then 19-year-old. And it wasn't that he had just purchased a $50,000 car but was still living on his best friend's couch. It was a completely different red flag that I just fucking bulldozed past. I can already hear the men in the comments being like, you were 19, you were an adult, you did nothing wrong. Fucking go to bed. After he encouraged me to drop out of college and somehow convinced me to move into a whole ass apartment with him after 2 months of dating, I got home from work one day and decided I was going to withdraw money from the card that our company deposited our checks into, and was told that it was empty. And then I called the credit card company and they said it had been withdrawn earlier that day. My purse had been with him all day long while I was at work. So of course I inquired, perhaps did you find yourself bored today and decide to withdraw $100 from my account? And he vehemently denied it, and then cried to me all night about how, if you can't trust me with your purse, then clearly you don't love me as much as you should. Of course, I just wholeheartedly believed him and apologized profusely. He admitted to it the next day and said the only reason he took it is because he didn't think that I would miss it, so of course he should have it. I dumped his ass immediately. Just kidding, I dated him for a full fucking year after that.
Guys, don't let anybody justify them removing your personal belongings from your account, like money. When you see that first red flag, drop and go, because it'll only get worse from there.
There are so many red flags. I do feel like an idiot. I could turn this into a whole series. Oh my god. Well, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna tell you one. Just one. So his sister came from the UK to visit us. We were living in Australia. She came all the way from the UK to visit us. And we lived in a 2-bedroom townhouse. We had a whole ass bed. We had a whole second bedroom. He would not let her stay with us. He made her stay in a hostel. When I said to him, I'm not comfortable with that. Like, I would like your sister to stay with us. He was like, no, my fat sister is not staying with us. And he knew that I struggled with an eating disorder. And I was like, please don't call her that. I hope you don't call her that to her face, but please don't call her that around me. And he was like, how else is my fat sister going to know that she's fat if I don't call her my fat sister? And like the time I got to know his sister, she is not only a physically gorgeous person, but she is beautiful on the inside as well. And I, to this day, have no idea why he wouldn't let her stay with us and why he's such a fucking asshole to her. Anyways, the moral of this story is the way cishet men treat the women in their family is a potential indicator for how they're going to treat the women they date when they no longer perceive those women as valuable to them.
And that last part was very true, guys. A lot of words of wisdom. Let's look at what else she has to say.
Before I get into this, it's really hard to admit that I allowed my ex-fiance to treat me like this. And not even not even someone I was dating. I was fianced. Thank you for the emotional support. Okay, so we would sometimes watch a movie and eat dinner as you do, but I was never allowed to sit on the couch and eat because he perceived me as more clumsy than him. So I had to sit on the floor on what he called an eating blanket. And occasionally if he wasn't home, I would like eat a bowl of cereal while I watched a dumb Netflix show, but I would set up the blanket so if I heard him come home, I could quickly jump to it and he wouldn't know that I had broken the rule. The moral of this story is if someone treats you like a child, it's not because they want a partner, it's because they want someone they can dominate. And while I acknowledge it's hard to get out from the thumb of someone's emotional manipulation at the end of the day, it was up to me to set that boundary. It was up to me not to sit on the fucking blanket. But I did. Oy.
And that's something we all need to hear in our lives. Setting boundaries is very important.
When I was in high school, I dated this guy named Llewellyn, which honestly was the first red flag. I think I was 18 and he was 21, so I was still in high school and he was working at a restaurant near my high school. So when I was in high school, I had very debilitating social anxiety. And so I was like 100% the weird kid. It was not a fun time for me, socially speaking. Whenever Llewellyn and I would go out to like a social event or something with friends that I had known before him, we would always have a great time. And whenever he would drop me off or we would go back to his place or my place, he would always confide in me that the people we were hanging with would talk shit about me behind my back, like really nasty things. And at first I didn't confront these people because I just believed him and I would just avoid these people in total. And it's only when I started to confront these people about some of the things Llewellyn was saying that they were saying about me, just because the magnitude of people who were saying these things became so large, that I realized not only was he lying, but these people would also reveal to me that those were things he was saying about me to them. The gaslighting and social isolation got to a point where he would actually pick me up from wherever I was when we were going on a date or something and literally start the conversation with, I don't care about what other people say about you, I love you. And naturally I would be like, well, what do other people say about me that would even prompt this comment? And he would be like, oh, I shouldn't have said anything, don't even worry about it. And I would get quite upset and be like, well, someone is clearly saying something to you, why don't you just tell me what it is? And then in an absolute masterclass of gaslighting, he would get angry with me for being upset that he wouldn't tell me who was saying shitty things about me behind my back, and tell me that I was attacking him and proving them right. Them being no one, by the way, except him, of course. Full disclosure and possible overshare, this was not the first boyfriend of mine, but the first boyfriend with whom I had had sex. And after we had had sex, he gave me this whole speech about how the first person he had sex with cheated on him and how he was wrecked about it and he would never do that to anyone else. And this is a weird thing to share with somebody, like just unprompted. And so this man, I shit you not, didn't cheat on me once, not even twice, but 3 times. Hello? Spent 3 days convincing me to take him back, and within the first 15 minutes of me stupidly saying yes, dumped me. I am good friends with every single one of my exes. I have great taste in men, but wow, Llewellyn, surname redacted, you're a piece of shit. I hope you find this.
Very important, guys. Let's take time to ask questions before passing judgment too soon.
I have learned this lesson the hard way a couple of times, but baby gaze. Extremely happy for you, but it's a no for me.
This may seem really basic, but I really wish that somebody had pointed it out to me far earlier in my life. I would say the time that he said something incredibly hurtful, demeaning, and disrespectful that hurt my feelings in a big way. And I waited till the next day to talk to him about it calmly and affectionately and sweetly, and let him know that he had hurt my feelings, and comments like that are hurtful. And I got yelled at and met with rage and told that I was too sensitive. Altogether now, that's gaslighting. If you calmly and effectively state your needs or your hurt and the other person does nothing about it, but get mad at you for it, they are not in that relationship for you. They don't care about you. They are only in it for themselves, and they will continue to do that to you until you are a shell of a person. Trust me. If you get in trouble for being a person, for having feelings and having needs, just run. Just run. Love you.
Wise words. Do not tolerate any of that from anyone.
I moved back to my hometown about 2 years after getting sober and got a job at a little coffee shop and was a barista. There's this guy that came in every morning and he caught my eye right away. He was very well-spoken, articulate. We had a lot of things in common, and he was gorgeous. He gave me butterflies, and I hadn't had butterflies in a really long time. He made up some silly excuse one day to ask me for my number, and of course I was just beside myself. We texted for a while, and he finally asked me out. I was really excited for this date. We were meeting at his house, and then we were going to go out to eat, and I texted him and told him I was outside, and he asked me to come upstairs real quick. He wasn't ready yet. I really didn't want to, but I said, okay, I wasn't going to sit out in the parking lot. And I walked up to his apartment, knocked on the door, and he opened up the door. When we made eye contact, my stomach flipped. I don't know why. There was something that just made me uncomfortable, and I knew immediately that it was a wrong fit. But of course I didn't listen, and things went downhill from there. Red flag after red flag after red flag.
3 red flags that you can spot right away. Beware of the man who brags. Beware of the man who disses his ex. Beware of the guy who is always trying to convince you that he's a good guy. He's hiding something.
Yes, guys, if you're genuinely a good person, people will know. It's not something you'll constantly need to prove your worth about. And if somebody's disrespecting their ex when they broke up on mutual, understandable terms, imagine what they're going to say about you. You need to be aware and careful.
Being called the cool girl, and I will explain. Not too long ago, I was dating this guy very early in starting to see each other on one of our first hangouts or dates or whatever you want to call it. We're walking down the street, he stops walking, he looks at me and he's like, I love that you're so cool. When I asked him what he meant by this, he basically just said that I was always chill about everything. I didn't give him a hard time and I never made things weird. I won't speak for anyone else, but for me personally, identifying as a woman, that is one of the best things anyone could possibly say to me. I don't care who you are, if you identify as a woman at some point in your life, you've been either called irrational, been told you're crazy, or been told that you feel your feelings too much. So to hear that you are cool and chill feels really good. Until I realized I was being gaslit. The reality was I was being breadcrumbed and he didn't actually give a shit about me at all. But he continued to consistently remind me that I was the cool girl and how chill I was to excuse his shitty actions and reinforce that I was good for putting up with them.
Yes, guys, that is something manipulators will often do so that when you catch on to their abuse, they will use that to make you feel like you're the one with the problem, drive you insane. And when you lower your guard, they will use you and manipulate you again.
Quite a number of years ago, I dated a young man who lived at his mom's house. That's not the red flag, it was 2014. Minimum wage, everybody lived at their mom's house. One night, I went over and I made us a fancy dinner, just the two of us. And after dinner, I go and I start cleaning up. I'm at his mom's house, I want to be a good guest. He comes in the kitchen and he says, oh, can I help? How can I help? And I'm like, oh, sure, thanks. Can you start the dishwasher? This man looks at me and he says, yeah. How do I do that? I turned off the faucet and I looked at him and I said, you live here, correct? Yeah. You grew up in this house? Uh-huh. With this dishwasher? Right. Does your family just not use the dishwasher? No, my mom does. So you're telling me that your mom has done the dishes every day for 24 years and never asked you to do it, and you've never offered to do it? Yeah, I don't know how to do it. Why did I date this man for 8 months?
I stupidly went on 3 different dates with this guy, and they basically all went this same way. For a little bit of backstory is I'm a bit of a picky eater, to the point where I always look at the restaurant menu ahead of time to make sure that there's stuff on there that I want to eat. He also knew that. I get to the bar about 15 minutes early, so I decide to have a glass of wine at the bar. 3 glasses of wine later, he finally arrived. We sit down, and I look for the menu, and he goes, oh, don't worry about that, I've already ordered ahead. The food arrives, and it's squid ink pasta with tripe and this carrot puree with capers. I hate tripe and capers. So So I'm pushing the food around my plate just to make it look like I ate it. And eventually he notices, since he's been spending the entire time talking about how lucky I should feel, seeing that he is a project manager and I'm just a lowly project coordinator. I tell him the truth and then I'm going to order something else. And he tells me I'm not paying for anything else, in which I informed him I have my own money. Then he tells me that women aren't allowed to pay for their own food when they're with him.
If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. And subscribe. We publish new videos every day.